before this committee, you will be asked to testify on the following questions.
Sure. Yeah, we'll just read over this one.
I ripped off this one. These are
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so I would ask them.
Yeah, so this is what you can read, and then you can read all that.
Okay. All right, I'm just getting the organization here. All right, according to the founders, what were the basic purposes of government? Why did the framers think a constitution was necessary to achieve these purposes? Which did the founders think was more important, the common good or individual rights? Does our government serve the purpose that the framers intended? You may begin.
In the year 1770, our country did not exist. There was no United States of America. The people who created our country lived in the 13 British colonies. America was a very large place compared to most nations in Europe. There was a great deal of open unsettled space. The British colonies spread from what is now the state of Maine in the north to Georgia in the south. There was a space in America for people to settle and to own land. In Europe, only the rich could afford to buy land. In the colonies, land was cheap. People came with the hope of owning land meant that you could farm to support your family. The number of people who lived in colonies grew quickly. In 1775, there was 2.5 million people. 15 years later, there was almost 4 million people. King George III and Great Britain ruled the 13 colonies. The Intolerable Acts. Once when the Patriots did not ask to tell King George they need to be free. One of the acts was Boston Tea Party. On the December 1, 1773, and the locations in Boston, Massachusetts, King George III kept taxing them on a lot of things, and one of them was tea. So the Patriots took the tea and dumped it in the Boston Tea River to show King George III that they don't need this tea anymore.
The founders believed that the people needed government to protect our rights. Therefore, the main purpose of our government, they said, is to protect a person's right to life, liberty, and property. The people would feel safer than they did a state of nature. A state of nature is a situation in which there is no government, rules, or laws. For example, if the United States did not have a government, people would not know what to do. The people give up some of their freedoms. They consent or agree to create government and laws. The founders knew that sometimes people tried to take other people's rights away from them. They thought about the best ways to protect their rights. To do this, they imagined how life might be like without government, rules, or laws. The founders learned these ideas from study of history and government. Some of their ideas also came from religious beliefs. Many founders studied the ideas of John Locke. John Locke was a writer who lived in England in the 17th century. The founders used his ideas in planning our government.
As my teammate Juliana said before, the founders were trying to figure out how to conduct a national government, and they read about a republican government. A republican government is a type of government that let the people hold the power, which means that the people can vote for who they want in the government, and they pay taxes to keep the government running. A republican government also has representatives. They are responsible for all people, not just some people. They vote on laws based on the people's votes. In a republican government, they have direct democracies, which means that people get to vote on what laws they need. According to our government today, they are still debating on which is more important, the common good or individual rights. For example, the travel ban. Trump says that is for the common good, but it is also violating individual rights. So they're trying to find out which is more important. In my opinion, common good is more important because if you didn't have common good, we would go into a state of nature. Which means a situation where there is no rules or laws. According to John Locke, that meant without common good, our individual rights would be violated. So basically, the common good is more important because it is protecting individual rights. But you would think, why is the government still debating? Because the Bill of Rights lists our individual rights and the Constitution is for the common good. So the real question is, which is more important, the Bill of Rights or the Constitution?
The American colonies broke away from the British rule. They chose to be a free country. Colonists sent delegates to the Second Continental Congress after the Revolution. They were still thinking about ways to get Britain to change its politics. However, they were conducting the war. In spring of 1776, more and more colonists were in favor of independence. The Declaration of Independence was written in order to clarify and justify the actions of the Second Continental Congress, which was assumed the power of the official government. The colonists saw themselves as Englishmen, with all the rights of Englishmen. In June 1776, the Congress of the United Colonies appointed 5 delegates to produce a formal writing Declaration of Independence. After several weeks, Thomas Jefferson completed the draft. It was written to King George and the world to read. After the Revolution, they started to become a united nation.
In 1776, British government in the colonies came to an end. The colonies were now free and independent states. They were free to their self to do so. Each state even had to set up even a new government, and a few states has written their constitutions even some months later. At that time, most Americans did not even think of themselves even as one nation. They were even loyal and to their states. Some people believe the states should be united.
I have a few questions for the committee, and just a few clarifications here. There's been times when individual rights and the common good are in conflict. Can you give me an example of common good and individual rights in conflict, either at school or in our society?
An example of when common good and individual rights are at conflict is when, I don't know if you heard about the pipelines. So in North or South Dakota, I'm not sure, there is a tribe that lives there, and the government gave them their own land. Nobody can touch it. But Trump, he has put the pipelines through their graveyard where they bury the dead bodies in their tribe. So Trump says that it's for the common good, but it is violating their individual right of property because that's where the graveyard is.
And can you think of a conflict at school that might affect your life between your right as an individual and the common good of the school? Is there any rules at the school that perhaps you feel that really aren't necessary, but it's to protect everybody at the school? Are there any things that you might see as maybe infringing on your right? How about saying a prayer at school out loud?
No, I don't think kids should be allowed to pray at school because it will, it will go against their, if they have a different religion, it will go against their religion to pray in school.
I think, I'm getting with Samantha, I think we should not have any prayers at school. If you pray out really loud, I think it's distracting the whole class.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything to say about that?
I think there shouldn't be any prayers at school because if it's a public school, then most of the kids have different religious beliefs. But if it's like a Catholic school or something, then it's okay for you to pray during school.
Does that not take away your individual right if you are a very, let's say you were, part of your religion is to say a prayer each day? That could be maybe a conflict between the common good of your classroom and your individual right. Yes?
I don't think it's violating your rights because the schools actually made a compromise when they said that you can't pray, when they said that there shouldn't be prayer in school. When we do the pledge every morning, there's the 30-second of silence, and you can take that time to either pray or do what you need to do in that 30 seconds of silence.
Thank you. You said in your speech, or somebody said, that they felt the common good is important and maybe more important than individual rights. I'd like to know what you each think about that. Do you think there's any times individual rights are more important than common good, or how do you feel about that?
Yes, I think sometimes individual rights are better than common good because you have the right to life, liberty, and property, and the pursuit of happiness.
I think that common good is what we should do because some people need help, like they need welfare or something. And in my opinion, I got mad that Trump was trying to take Obamacare away from people because the people really need it.
You also said in your speech that we have a Republican government where we elect representatives to make laws for the whole country. We also do that for our states, which you mentioned also. We elect folks to make the laws of Nevada. Do you feel that you can contact your representative and tell them how you feel about the pipeline and health care? What are the ways that you let those representatives know? I know you can't vote, but are there other ways of letting them know?
You could always call your representatives because they're responsible for your opinion, and when a bunch of people say the same opinion over and over, they go tell the National Congress.
I think calling your representatives will tell them how you feel, and if you wanted to change a law and you thought it was unconstitutional, then you could call a judge or you could call a representative.
Okay, that's right. We have two other branches, don't we, to check and balance. Well, let's do a little change direction here. Think of those who were able to participate in government in the 1770s, which you explained what life, you did a very nice job with that, Israel, what life was like back then. Do you think, how is our current government different than the government back then in the 1770s and the type of people that could participate in that government? How are we different today?
In 1776, the British government, they did independent states and constitutions, but now it's they taking the states to a different another state, taken away.
Okay. Okay.
think that the difference between the government now is that they have more rules and laws than they had in the 1770s.
In the 1770s, there were no women and black men back then, but now there's more people in the government.
Do those women and minorities of all kinds and the population of America, do they have to own property to vote? Why did they have to own property back then?
I feel like they had to own property back then because I think it was something that had to do with like voting or something like that.
You had to own property
Yeah.
to be able to vote after we got our freedom. But what's the connection between owning property and being able to vote? It's just one more restriction. You said that only like white males could vote. Now they have to own property too. Back then.
That's the last question. Last question.
Okay.
I think that they had to own property because I think the framers thought, well, they must be responsible enough. They must be responsible enough to vote because they own property, and you gotta be responsible with your property.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's an interesting idea. That is. So we're all done.
Unit 2, please stand.
Well, I do have to say, Unit 1, you did a very nice job. And you all participated very nice. Got it.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Nice to meet you.
Good afternoon, my name is Angela. Good afternoon, my name is Jonas.
Nice to meet you.
Good afternoon, my name is Leslie. Good afternoon, my name is
You may be seated.
And then Angela, your name tag, Manuel.
Manuel, Angela, Jonas, Lacey, Isla, is it?
Isla.
Okay, again, you are another committee that was formed to inform me, because you are experts, about Unit 2. And Unit 2 is about the framers writing our Constitution. And I'm going to ask you the questions I'd like you to tell me about. What was the first national government like under the Articles of Confederation? How was the Philadelphia Convention organized, and was the group assembled a fair representation of U.S. people? What major conflicts over representation did the framers need to resolve? How were the conflicts resolved? What did the framers do about the problem of slavery? And what was the Bill of Rights, or why was the Bill of Rights added to our Constitution? You may begin.
The Philadelphia Convention is a meeting held in Philadelphia in 1787, where the Constitution was written. In my sources it says, since the founders declared their independence, the founders needed to create a new government for all states of the nation. That's when the Philadelphia Convention comes in. Thomas Jefferson and Thomas Paine were not at the Philadelphia Convention. Other popular Americans were at the convention. Like Patrick Henry, he feared that the delegates would try to make a strong national government. Henry tried hard to convince the people to reject the Constitution. At the start of the convention, the delegates agreed on 4 things. George Washington would serve as president of the convention. All small and or large states
would have one vote at the convention. They would keep their conversations private, and they decided to keep whatever they said in that meeting to remain secret for 30 years.
The final agreement was that they would not fix the Articles of Confederation, which was the original Constitution. The Articles didn't give Congress that much power. The framers knew that the Articles of Confederation had many weaknesses. The national government under the Articles was not effective. Under the Articles, there were neither national court nor a president. The Articles of Confederation set up a loose union of states with equal powers. We call such a union a confederation. The founders faced two main problems when they wrote the Articles of Confederation. The national government under the Articles was weak. As shown during Shays' Rebellion, many people were frightened by the rebellion. They also worried that it could spread to other states.
The Bill of Rights was added so it could protect everyone's individual rights. So thankfully that now I know that the Bill of Rights was added, because now I know that my individual rights are protected since I was born. And additional information that the Bill of Rights was signed in 1791.
The Bill of Rights affected the Constitution because it made the independent right stronger. The first 10 amendments are the Bill of Rights.
The Bill of Rights was added to the Constitution because the New Jersey Plan mandated. And mandated means give authority to act in a certain way. Another reason why the Bill of Rights was added was because it was necessary to maintain trade relations with foreign states.
Then the Federalists forced the Anti-Federalists to add the Bill of Rights so it could protect the rights of independence. The last reason why the Bill of Rights was added to the Constitution was because Anti-Federalists wanted citizens to have guarantees of protection from our government monocracy, a system of government by only one person.
The Bill of Rights affected the Constitution because it said it will ensure that the most civil humans have liberties and rights such as the freedom of speech and the religion would be protected by the government.
At the Philadelphia Convention, when Congress could not decide how many representatives to send to Congress. This problem was solved when the government made the Great Compromise. In this compromise, both large and small states got what they wanted. Congress was broken up into two houses, the Senate and the House of Representatives. The number of representatives was sent based on the population of the state. Another major conflict was when the problem of slavery reached disagreement. The Southern states threatened to break away from the United States and become their own country. The reason for this was the Southern states wanted slavery to continue, while the Northern states believed it was unfair and unconstitutional and needed to put an end to. Some of the compromises that were made are the Northern states agreed that the Constitution would allow slavery to continue. The national government was not allowed to end the slave trade until 1808. Slaves that had escaped to other states had to be returned. The Southern states agreed that Congress would have the power to control trades between the states. The Northern and Southern states also agreed upon the 3/5 clause.
This clause gave the Southern states the right to count 3/5 of their slaves to Congress.
The group that assembled at the Philadelphia Convention did not fairly represent of the people. There were no black women, indentured servants, free black young people. It did not fairly represent its citizens. So if the delegates kept progressing a secret, the people would be really mad. They would write or call the representatives. The people would not trust the state government because the state government something really important, a secret.
We're done?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You explained that the framers did not abolish slavery at the time they wrote the Constitution. Do you think it was wise for the framers to keep slavery in the Constitution, or the concept of slavery in the Constitution?
In my opinion, I think that it is wise because at the time, the framers wanted the United States to be a country, and if they didn't have the Southern states get what they wanted, then that means that the country that we have now, it would still be a country, but not a imperfect country.
Anyone else on that one? How was the issue of slavery finally decided? We do not have slavery in this country today. How was it decided?
The issue of slavery was decided because they didn't like how they were treating them, so they fought for their rights.
And Abraham Lincoln will direct the country to end slavery.
Can you repeat the question?
I was just wondering, whatever happened to slavery? Obviously, it was an issue
What happened to
from
slavery?
the very beginning.
And it's another team will fully address that question, but
Okay.
they're also asking you. So you can reflect upon another statement by your classmates and refer to that.
The slavery was decided that because like the northern states didn't want any slaves, but the southern states still wanted slaves, and the southern states were called the Confederate States. There was only 11, and then the war. That was the Civil War, and another nickname for that was the war between the states, and like that is like brother versus brother. And then it was decided because the northern states won the southern states, and Abraham Lincoln, the president, I don't know what president was. He like I'm not sure, but this is what I think, that like he stopped slavery by making an order to end slavery.
And I think you were all right on that. We absolutely could not have become a country under a constitution had we had to go to war, because it does end in war, doesn't it? Very good. Why did the 55 delegates at the convention, I think it was so important to keep everything a secret during that long, hot summer?
I think the delegates wanted to keep some things a secret because if they told the people that they'll like they wouldn't agree on it, and then they'll get like freaked out and just don't
That's exactly right.
don't agree on it.
I agree with my teammate Lacey. If the framers did not keep the convention a secret, then that means that the people that would have known would still want to get into it, and if the framers didn't like it, then if the framers didn't like it to happen from the people, then it would start. Then the people would get mad, and the convention, the framers and the convention would have, and the Constitution would have been a disaster.
I agree with both of my teammates because if the government let the secret out, the people wouldn't like it, and they would have gone to another constitution. Because like if they didn't like what the secret was, there would have been a country.
Last question.
Last question. You mentioned the Bill of Rights. I'd like to know what rights in the Bill of Rights you feel are most important today, or to you.
Anybody can answer.
Can you please repeat the question again?
I would like to know which one of the rights in the Bill of Rights are of special importance to you.
Anybody can answer.
Like the special Bill of Rights to me is like the individual right, because yes, the common good is good too, but the individual rights are good. And the First Amendment is your freedom of speech, so that's my favorite amendment in the Bill of Rights.
And why is that?
It's that because it is the First Amendment, because if we didn't have that amendment, I would have not be talking right now.
Anybody else?
Which of the amendments do we need? So I'm going to take one away. 1 through 10. Which one am I taking away? Or which one do you want to make sure you want to keep?
I would like to agree with Jonas, Amendment number 1, because Amendment number 1 has us say has us express what we want to express, how we want to express ourselves.
Thank you.
Ask another question, right? Excellent job, Unit 2.
And he
I like
expresses
the way
his
they-
personality. That's why you need your First Amendment right. Take Mount.
You just said my answer.
Well, Eric got this. Unit 3.
Good afternoon. My name is Oscar.
Nice to meet you.
Good afternoon. My name is Sydney. Good afternoon. My name is Derek. Good afternoon. My name is David.
Nice to meet you.
Good afternoon. My name is Emma.
You may be seated. Well, good afternoon, Unit 3. You are experts on the Constitution and how it organizes our government. What basic ideas about government are included in the preamble of the Constitution, which you recited so beautifully as a class? How does the Constitution limit the powers of government? Describe the 3 branches of government. Give some current examples of checks and balances. And how does the Constitution create a federal system of government? You may begin. Breathe.
Good afternoon, parents and judges. The framers knew that they needed a strong natural government, but they also knew that the government needed limits. To accomplish this, they created the separations of powers of checks and balances to make sure the government was not able to become too powerful.
Judicial branch, the framers gave this branch the power to set up agreements about the laws. The legislative branch makes the laws. This national law-making branch is also called Congress. As described in Article 1, Section 1, Congress is broken up into the Senate and the House of Representatives. Each state has 2 senators. The number of representatives in the House is based on population. When the Constitution was written, each state was granted one representative per 30,000 people. Now it's up to 650,000. The judicial branch settled agreements about what the laws mean. The Supreme Court, the highest court in the United States, and it has 8 justices and 1 chief justice on it. They interpret the United States Constitution and make sure that all actions taken and laws made by the government are within the limits set by the supreme law of the land, our Constitution. The exclusive branch carries out and enforces the laws. The president is the leader of the exclusive branch, but has a cabinet of experts that advise him on different issues.
By creating the 3 branches of government, the framers built a check and balances system as a way to limit the government. The system was built so that no one branch could become too powerful. Each branch is restrained by the other 2 in several ways. For example, Congress can override a veto with a vote of 2/3 from both houses. Another example is that the Supreme Court may check Congress by declaring a law unconstitutional. The power is balanced by the fact that members of the Supreme Court are appointed by the President.
Judicial review is where we also believe that the Supreme Court has the right to declare a law made by Congress unconstitutional because the Supreme Court justices check whether or not the Constitution is being followed. We believe because they are not elected, they can look at laws and people's actions without being afraid of losing their job. They most use the Constitution as their guideline when making their decision, and this makes their decision more honest. One example of how checks and balances is used today is when President Trump replaced one of the Supreme Court justices, and the Congress had to approve his appointment.
2 important aspects of the U.S. Constitution, federalism and the separation of powers, represent in part the framers' effort to divide government powers. Federalism limits government by creating 2 subregional powers, the national government and state government, thereby restraining the influence of both. The 2 levels of government must share their influence. State government deal with smaller domestic issues, while the federal government handles nationwide concerns. Under Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution, the national government is limited to certain powers, including levying taxes, minting money, and declaring war. The 10th Amendment grants the states any powers not given to the federal government or specifically forbidden to the states. For instance, states can also levy individual taxes and manage roads and schools with their own legislation.
The framers wanted to make sure that the people's rights were protected from the government, from both state and federal. The way the Constitution was written, there are limits on everyone's powers, and everyone is being checked to make sure they are doing the right thing for both individual and the common good.
Thank you. Do you think today that there is one branch that is more important than the others? And why?
Yes, I think there is a branch. I think it's the legislative branch. Because Congress, it's also in that branch because they're checking on the president's checking on his powers of what he's doing right now.
All right. And can you think of any powers that perhaps the Congress is trying to check on the president? Any powers that
I think is because him limiting our freedom of expression, our First Amendment right, is because that he trying to make a law that we cannot protest on against him.
Well, let me ask you this: if President Trump had asked Congress to make a law protesting, to outlaw protest, what could we the people do about that? If the president had wanted to stop these protests and the Congress passed a law that said, oh, we can't have protests anymore while the president's appearing, what could we the people do? Or is another branch able to do something?
I think that we the people we can sign petitions of what we want, talk about, and what we're against.
We can call
Congress, or call your
president.
The president. That would be interesting. Okay. Or Twitter. Social media, whatever you would answer. Okay. How about the Supreme Court's role? That judicial branch of government, could it do anything about that law? What do you think, Carrie?
They can do a 2/3 vote.
Well, they could hear the case in front of them, couldn't they? And what could they do about that law? Could they declare it something?
Yep, the card that, or Derek, that's yours.
Derek.
Derek, you talked about what judicial review was. What was that?
Judicial review, wonderful subject.
That the Supreme Court has the right to declare a law made by Congress.
Unconstitutional, right? Okay. And so that is why we still have the right to protest. And that law will never end up actually passed, affecting us. So, very good.
Last question.
Give an example of when one branch checks up on another branch of government. When one branch checks up on another branch of government. Is there anything that's happened today that one branch is looking at another branch of government?
I think the judicial branch is taken up on the legislative branch because of the president of the freedom of expression.
And his executive orders banning travel. Very good. Committees. We're going to see some committees on TV looking at what he said to Russians. So I would say your three branches are alive and well. They're working the way they should be working. Very nice.
Thank you, Unit 3.
Thank you. That is a tough unit. It's the toughest.
Unit 4.
I wanted to talk about federalism. Oh. Well,
Name tag.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. You may be seated.
And then who's missing from you guys? Michael, okay, just sit closer over there, Amy. Thank you, class.
We have a committee that has been formed in Congress. Well, actually, you are the experts from all across the country, and I am the Congressional Committee, and I need to know more about certain issues concerning the Bill of Rights and your individual rights. How does the Constitution protect our basic rights? How does the Constitution protect your right to freedom of expression, and why is that important? How does the Constitution protect your right to freedom of religion? Are there times the government should have the right freedom to limit freedoms under the First Amendment? How does the Constitution protect your right to equal protection of the laws? And how does the Constitution protect your right to due process of the laws? How does the Constitution protect your right to vote? You may begin.
The Bill of Rights was introduced by the fourth president in 1789 and became the first 10 constitutional amendments in 1791. In 1791, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, which are the Bill of Rights, went into effect. Their purpose was to protect the citizens and to prevent the federal government from abusing its powers. The First Amendment, freedom of expression, has 4 parts: speech, press, assembly, and petition. Speech is the right to talk about your beliefs, ideas, or feelings. Press is the right to read or write whatever you wish. Assembly is the right to meet with others to discuss your beliefs, ideas, or feelings. Petition is the right to ask your government to correct things you think are wrong.
Freedom of expression is important to our democracy because it advances knowledge and it helps us grow as individuals. It even makes peaceful change in society possible. And you can express your thoughts and your feelings. Also, it enables the public to participate in making decisions based on free flow of information and ideas. Freedom of expression is a fundamental human right. It also underpins most rights and allows them to flourish. The right to speak your mind on important issues in society, access information, and hold the powers that be to account plays a role in a healthy development process of any society. Without it, people would be unable to make informed decisions.
While we have the rights to freedom of expression, there are times when freedom of expression should be limited, but these times only include when the 5 parts to freedom of expression are being unprotected, which include press, assembly, petition, and religion, and the pursuit of happiness. For an example, a child yells out fire which causes rights endangered. Or your right to speak, to freedom of speech, which is why we raise our hands in class so everyone could get a free opportunity to speak. There are also some other cases like Fina versus New York, where the citizens of New York's rights were being violated because Fina was wrong. And he was trying to create violence, and he dictated everyone else to use violence. From today's society, the only answer that can be considered satisfactory is that freedom of expression is no longer freedom of expression. It's making us citizens intolerant, especially on social media, where we all like we are in a debate. For an example, students are recording other students fighting, and they're just laughing while others are endangered by their lives. Before Donald Trump started living in the presidential life, people used to spread rumors saying Donald Trump is racist. But now he's president. Since he was voted president at a fair share, why do we still do it? If that was us, we would want to protect ourselves and our society. That's why Donald Trump is trying his best to create a new executive order. So now as citizens of the United States can't protest against him. But if we do, we have to pay some sort of price. But we can make a difference to that in life, no matter how old we are, because most of us are younger. But that is no exception to why we still haven't did it. But luckily, I know that freedom of expression will soon be like the one it used to be. But for now, it will and will always have some sort of limits.
First Amendment. Whatever religious beliefs you wish and what you believed in, you wouldn't have to worry about the government interfering in your belief. The first word of the bill from the Bill of Rights is that Congress shall make no law respecting about an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise.
How the idea of equal protection has been used to protect people's rights is by the Civil War Amendments. If you are wondering what the Civil War Amendments are, they are the 13th and 14th and 15th Amendments. The 13th Amendment says that slavery is unlawful. The 14th Amendment says that all citizens have rights regardless of their race. The 15th Amendment says that all male citizens have the right to vote. Why does male citizens is because in the time of 1870, females did not have the right to vote until 1920 in the 19th Amendment. But adding on to the 15th Amendment, it also says that all male citizens, regardless of the race, have the right to vote. The Civil Rights Act of 1964. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 ended segregation in public places such as restaurants, hotels, and movie theaters. The law also said that employers cannot discriminate people against their race, national origin, and religion or gender. As African Americans won the right to equal protection, other groups started to ask for the same right, such as Asians, Latinos, Natives, and people with disabilities, the elderly, and much more.
Pass it down for later.
As said in the book, in 1958, a Board of Education in New York, it gave schools a specific prayer that teachers must teach their students. The teacher would say the prayer out loud and the students would have to repeat. And if a student did not want to do that specific prayer, they would be told to sit quietly or to leave the room. In my opinion, I believe that schools should never put prayers in classrooms. The reason why I believe that they should not be prayers in classrooms is because some students may not be from that same prayer and then they might believe in a different religion.
Thank you. You had mentioned that there are Americans who feel that they can't protest against our American president. What are the limits right now on protesting? Anyone can answer.
The limits right now on protesting is when you're protesting against someone, if you're gonna be near like their house or their area, you have to have a permit. And when you're protesting, it can't be like an angry, like if you're like you can't be like an angry protesting and make lies and rumors and stuff to change other people's persuasions.
Okay, so you can't endanger other
Yeah.
people. Okay, and you have to have a permit if it's on private property. Okay, are there any other limits?
Causing fights.
Which was causing fights, inciting riot. Okay, I think Amy, did you get something?
I think that since the president wants to stop us from protesting, he should know that since now he's the president, he's not just any ordinary person, and he should know that people want to protest against the things that they don't like.
Right now we have laws that cannot stop people from protesting as long as, like Iona? Iona, sorry, I didn't see it. Had a bow in front of it. But, she had said as long as you're not hurting someone else and as long as you have a permit.
Excuse me.
Yes.
I need Derek to the health office, please.
Okay.
Derek Williams.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
So do you have the right to protest, your right to protest?
Yes.
If someone tried to take away the right to protest, I don't care if it's the president or the Supreme Court, do you still have the right to protest? Why?
Why is protesting important?
Protesting is important because you should have the right to talk. You should have the right if the president is trying to make a new law and you don't like it. You should have the right to protest because not everyone might like that new law, and it wouldn't be fair. Some people would just think about moving out the United States if they don't like the law, but the president won't be able to listen because protesting might be the only way or the only biggest way to talk to him.
Did you have something to add? No, I thought you did.
Last question.
Oh my goodness. Gosh. Okay. Can you give me an example of how the Constitution protects your right to due process?
Like if you were accused of committing a crime, what rights do you have?
You have the right to trial by jury.
Another right that you have if you are accused of a crime is the right to have a lawyer to support you on what you have to say.
You have the right to have witnesses.
To have your witnesses in court, okay.
And you have the right to speak, if someone else is speaking, you have the right to raise your hand or something and speak instead of staying quiet.
Defend yourself.
Yeah, defend yourself.
For your defense, okay. Okay, we're done.
You want one more?
Yeah, I'd love one more.
You sounded like you did.
Can you give me an example of the way the Constitution protects your right to equal protection of the laws?
The way that it protects your right to equal protection is by the Civil Rights Amendments, because they are not just for the white men, that how the Bill of Rights was, but it's for women as well, as the 19th Amendment as well. So it actually protects African Americans and other groups of race.
Adding on to what Amy said, the amendments help. they protect us, because with the amendments, that's the one that gives us the right to talk, the right to press, assemble, and petition, and that's the one that ended slavery, abolished slavery.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was excellent.
Please stand. Yeah, remember to do mine.
I wish we'd had a little more time to talk. It's lovely. Anyone going to be a lawyer there?
Yes. Miss Ayana will definitely be here. If not, she should.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, my name is Daniela.
Nice to meet you.
Good afternoon, my name is Chase.
Parents, you okay with going all the way to the bell ring so you can take your kids?
What was it?
We're good? Okay.
Good afternoon, my name is Samantha.
Nice to meet you. You may be seated.
We have 20 minutes for this group.
Ask away.
Yes.
Well, this may be the most important unit of study of government. We've looked at all three branches, and we've looked at how the Bill of Rights protects us, but this unit is about the responsibilities of citizens, what our responsibilities are to keep our democracy. What are some important responsibilities of citizens? How can citizens promote the common good? Why are so many young people not voting? Do you think every citizen should be required to vote? What is the role of the United States in the world today? You may begin.
Our country recognizes someone as a citizen who is born in the United States but living in another country. When you are born somewhere else but living legally in the United States, or has passed a test on our Constitution to become naturalized citizens, and children of naturalized citizens who were under 18 when their parents became citizens. Many responsibilities come with being a U.S. citizen, such as supporting and defending the Constitution, stay informed of the issues that are affecting our community, participate in the democratic process. A way to participate is by writing to our representatives or senators, and by calling police for something that we are not liking. Secondly, respect and obey federal, state, and local laws. Respect the rights, beliefs, and opinions of others. Participate in our local community. Thirdly, to pay taxes to federal, state, and local authorities. Fourthly, serve on a journey when called upon. Additionally, to defend our country when needed to the result of common good. For example, we can serve on the Army or the Armed Forces. And last but not least, the responsibility and right to vote. These responsibilities are about resident aliens, also known as permanent residents. If I recall correctly, you are to file incomes to the U.S. Internal Revenue Service and state taxing authorities, therefore expected to support our democratic form of government. Required if you are male age 18 through 25 to register with the Selective Service. If I clearly read, a man named Davis was having some bad times just for not voting. He didn't have any access to loans or grants. And in Virginia, he didn't even have a license. Who does not know that failure to registering can cause harm on citizenship?
The right to vote has been fought for and it's appreciated by some people. Citizens fought and died because they wanted everyone to have a chance to vote. The right for all people was given by the 15th and 19th Amendments. The 14th and 26th Amendments also give the right to vote. The 14th Amendment says, all citizens have rights regardless of race, for example, African Americans. The 15th Amendment says all male citizens have the right to vote. Not only that, but the 19th Amendment states women have the right to vote. Last but not least, the 26th Amendment states that the voting age should change from 21 years of age to 18. All of the 15th, 19th, and 14th Amendments are found in the Constitution.
The 15th Amendment was added in 1870 and the 19th Amendment was added in 1920, as well as the 14th Amendment was added in 1863 and the 26th Amendment was added in 1971. But many citizens from different states don't vote. There are reasons to explain why. Some citizens are too young and not 18 yet, or the government took the right to vote away. The government has the right to take the right to vote away only if it does something really bad. Plus part of the people are from Mexico and aren't allowed to vote. But the rest are citizens of over 18 and still don't vote. Many citizens don't care about voting or want to vote but can't. For example, people have busy schedules or are working. So citizens that have busy days try to vote up at the location that is found, but the conflict is sometimes the lines are too long and people don't have that much time. Additionally, citizens that watch the debates and watch the candidates, they might not have the same thoughts and ideas. Another reason some people often move from state to state, missing the registration deadlines or requirements since they are different. Finally, citizens don't have transportation to get at the polls. Sadly, some citizens think that their vote doesn't count, but in reality, every vote does make a difference.
In the present day, citizens have certain rights, including freedom of expression. When citizens exercise this right, they express their thoughts and opinions, and our democracy is being supported. Citizens should be required to participate in government from campaigning to the elections. Voting should be required because it is a citizen's civic duty to take action on the candidate or congressman that they want to stop from taking office because they do not display the same thoughts. So it's crucial not to vote as a citizen. During last year in the elections, my family discussed the candidates and they voted. But if we as citizens don't vote, then who will? Citizens should also be required to take part in government, such as voting, since without the citizens' vote in government, the government might no longer promote voting and might become an autocratic government, which means a dictatorial government. Citizens should be involved in government since after the elections, they usually complain that they couldn't take part in government, but in reality, they could have taken part in many things, like voting for a congressman, which represents you usually in the electoral college, and they could also participate in marches, letter writing campaigns, and political rallies. Citizens should be required to be involved in government, since without their participation in government, it takes an immense role towards our government. Since said in the Bill of Rights, people in government are the servants of the people. They are not the masters of the people. Citizens can participate in government by participating in marches, letter writing campaigns, and political rallies when they are necessary. During last year's elections on congressmen and candidates, if every citizen was required to vote, believe it or not, there could have been a win for Hillary Clinton. Since Hillary Clinton won the popular vote, and since the Electoral College is a system that takes a vote over the citizens because they represent the citizens. So since Hillary Clinton earned the popular vote, so a fall of her citizens who voted for her in Congress, she might have taken a win against Donald Trump.
While my teammate Jose stated voting should be required, I feel differently. In my opinion, voting should not be required because some people don't know enough to vote or they're not registered to vote.
I disagree with my teammate Jace because we as the people should be required to vote because in the 19th Amendment in 1920, the women had the right to vote. So why keep working or stay in the house? Well, now that we have all the right, we all have the right to vote, you can go vote. But their time has to be used wisely to be able to go. People may also think or say that they can't go because of the children, but that is not true because the children can press the button to confirm the answer, or the parents could also grab the hand or carry them.
My teammate Mariana said that citizens could promote the common good, which is people working with the government and each other to find what is best for most people. People sometimes agree on the common good. Other times the common good is debatable. Sometimes people want to protect one thing, but it will cause them to endanger another thing. This is where the disagreement comes in. Sometimes it is hard to decide between self-interest and common good. We the people run our government. We vote in our leaders, making sure they are good leaders. If not, we don't vote for them. If they are, we vote for them again. We participate in government to defend our rights and our welfare. Though you can't vote until you're 18, you can still participate in government. You could become part of your school government and start now to become an informal and effective citizen. Also, you can obey the law, pay taxes, and protect your rights and the rights of people around you. You can create a harmonious society, consent to maintain social order. The people own the power of checks and balances, not the government.
We have responsibilities to other nations of the world. It is our responsibility to give respect to other countries' cultural principles and beliefs. Showing respect to other countries can result in a harmonious and peaceful world and can prevent world war. It's also our responsibility to know what is happening in the other parts of the world in order for us to know how to keep our nation safe and to help people, especially children. Like children living in Syria that was traumatized in the war, their citizens cannot help them because they were also affected by the war. As a citizen of this nation, we can give them a helping hand in order for them to survive and forget the trauma that they experienced. But as citizens of this country, we have our own responsibility to our country. Before becoming responsible to other countries, you have to be responsible in your own country first. You have to start it in the foundation. If every citizen are giving respect to each other, our country will be stronger and peaceful. And before helping other countries, we have to help our own first. There are many people that are in need that are waiting for help. If we help them and they were able to stand on their own, they can become an asset of this country. We can help more countries if our country is stronger, economical, and we are living peacefully.
What can citizens do to change a law that they think is unfair?
This group, they all want to talk at once, so they're making sure that they are taking turns.
What citizens could do to change a law that they think that's unfair? They could petition to the government and ask questions.
Citizens can ask to change a law by protesting.
You can give the mic back to them.
Because they want to
Is
say
that mic
something.
on? Just hold it down on the bottom. Just hold it on the phone.
A citizen could also ask to change a law by signing a petition or protesting.
A way we as citizens can change a law is to make an organization and make a voice in this United States of America.
Do you think the current voting age is appropriate? And should the age be raised or lowered? And why?
Just start here and pass it down and I'll have an answer.
I think
That one might not be. That one's probably good.
I think the voting age should be lowered because like how my teammate Camilla said, every vote does count, and if the voting age stays like that, then it'll be like a little
less than the other votes, because if you lower the votes down, then even more people could vote, and then it could make a difference, and then they could vote even more, and then the voting could depend on which president we pick.
Anyone else?
I think that voting age is appropriate, but in my opinion, it should be lowered to like I think 15 years of age. I think it should be lowered at 15 years of age because some teenagers usually like watching the debates and want to express their ideas and thoughts and want to vote, but sadly, the voting age isn't 15 years of age, it's only 18.
I agree with my teammates that the age right now should be lowered because even now in 5th grade, they are maturing and getting ready to vote since we're learning our rights and what we can do to participate in government and what actions we can do towards our government. So I believe it should be lowered to age 16.
I agree with my teammates. I believe that the voting age should be lowered to at least 16, because that's when teenagers start to be more mature and get mature enough to vote.
Okay, next question.
Okay. If you had a brother or sister that was 18 or older, how would you convince them to become voters? Or even your parents, if that was the case?
If I had a brother or sister that was 18 years or older, I would convince them by reminding them that those people that fought for the right to vote and engaged the Civil War and about the women who fought for the right to vote.
If I had a sibling or a cousin that was 18, I would convince them by reminding them that although it might not seem that they can make a difference, they can make a difference. Because by voting is how this United States government was created in the first place.
Next question.
Okay. You had mentioned that perhaps Hillary Clinton would have been president if we did not have the electoral college system in place. Do you think our Constitution should be amended to allow the president to be elected by popular vote, and why or why not?
I feel like it should still be the electoral college, because the electoral college takes the popular vote of a state and turns it into an amount of electoral votes.
Like my teammate case, yeah. When they
I think the people should vote for the president in the electoral vote because I feel like the popular vote isn't that serious than the electoral vote, and yeah, thank you.
Next question.
Okay. Are there any ways that you can participate in our government now?
You can participate in government by running in office. As a 5th grader, you can participate in the government by writing or calling your representatives and telling them about things you don't like or things you like.
As you can participate in government is by participating in marches, letter writing campaign, and political rallies. Although you are not the age of 18, voting is just a fraction of what you can do to participate, and it's not the only way. There's other ways as well as voting.
Next question.
Okay. There's been several states that have passed laws on voter IDs, when you go to the poll, you must show a form of state identification, if not a birth certificate, if you don't drive, if you don't have a driver's license. It requires the citizen to bring proof that they are who they are on the day of voting, and if they don't have that proof, their vote is put aside until they have a certain amount of time to come in with that proof. Do you think that is fair burden to put on citizens, or do you think that it's necessary? We've heard talk of people that shouldn't have voted voting. What do you think about that?
When I think about that, I think it's fair because like they need some sort of thing to show that they're actually from this place and that they don't come like from some other place, like for the rumor that's going on that Russia was helping the campaign of Trump. It's sort of like that, since they weren't even from the United States. It's like a random person representing us in the United States, and they aren't even from the United States. So I believe, I think it's a fair burden.
Good afternoon, Primitive Birds. It is time for our afternoon announcements. We had Jacob out of Mr. Boat's class caught being kind. He went out of his way to hold the door open for another class who was coming into the building. Way to go, Jacob, for showing kindness to others. Don't forget, students, that Honor Society is sponsoring a book exchange all this week before school. So if you'd like to exchange a book that you have at home for a different one so that you could read this summer, please come by tomorrow morning in the library to check out and see what books we have available. Friday, our Spirit Day, is going to be Red, White, and Blue Day in honor of Memorial Day. So start thinking what you can wear so you too can look like the